USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, May 19th, 2025. Happy Epic Universe opening week. On the show today, news and listener questions. Let's plan a trip and never combine glitter and industrial adhesives. Then in our main segment, Jim gives us the history of Epcot's Mission Space attraction. Let's get started by bringing in the man who says that most sports fall into two categories. Those where you keep the ball and those where you hit the ball far, far away. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It is going well, Len. And by the way, excellent point. This is why, me personally, I find golf to be very indecisive. I mean, people who play golf clearly value those little white round things. They have special pockets in their golf bags where they keep their Titleist or whatever brand they use. And all along the golf course, there are these little stations set up so you can wash your golf balls.
You can wash them and take care of them, yes.
So they
little grooming stations,
right,
yes.
They have value. You know, you're supposed to keep them clean. But then you take these teeny little white things, you place them on the ground, and then with a club, you hit them as hard as you can to send them as far away.
As far as you can, yeah. To the point where you can't see where you're hitting it sometimes.
Well, and it just, to me, the message there is, I now hate you. Go away forever. But now you hustle across the golf course, desperate to be reunited with your little white friend, and sometimes you spend minutes clawing through the rough because it's like, I can't.
You're asking your friends, did you see the ball? I haven't seen the ball. Did you see where the ball went? It's important that I find the ball.
There we go. And then
and then you hit it again, yeah.
Well, then if you can't find it, it is a big deal. Yeah. What, there's a penalty?
You get penalized for not finding the ball that you hit far, far away.
This is why, for me, golf, very indecisive game. This is why whenever I'm invited to play, I always say, I'll be back at the clubhouse nursing an Arnold Palmer, not the legendary golfer himself, mind you, but the drink.
It's important these days to actually clarify that specific statement.
And speaking of which, the Arnold Palmer, I group that with, again, all those food items that I believe truly started as industrial accidents. You know, someone behind the bar, it's like, pay attention, you just put lemonade in my iced tea. It's like, all right,
ka-ching.
There we go.
Fantastic. All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Jake61341, John Gossett, Mike Bankhead, Jim Caserta, Magic by Randy, and WhereInThePark.com. Jim, this is the Disney pass holder magnet team whose latest design of Maleficent is available now at Epcot. They say their original idea was for scratch and sniff magnets that remind guests of being in Walt Disney World, but couldn't find an emulsifier strong enough to bind the sense of monorail air conditioning, the Main Street Bakery, and melting credit card plastic. True story.
Yes. How many of us are on a Walt Disney World vacation are familiar with the scent of melting credit card plastic? Just, wow. Okay.
I wish at some point we could go back to, remember the old, the card machines that you had to put, carbon paper on and go,
there we go.
Then they were called knuckle busters. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. But again, given your years at American Express, you would know that.
Yeah. Eventually we started using them as, paperweights.
Oh, well.
Because no one used them anymore, but yeah, still. Anyway.
There we go.
All right. On to the news. The Disney Dish News is sponsored by DVC Rental Store. And as you know, Jim, I'm planning a pre-Thanksgiving weekend trip with Hannah this year at Disneyland. And the cheapest Disneyland hotel I could find was Pixar Pier at $1,258 for 2 nights. And while I love Hannah, Jim, her suitcase unpacking technique looks like an industrial accident at the Rimowa factory. So I went to our sponsor, DVCRentalStore.com, who's offering the lowest prices of the year right now, and found Disneyland Hotel Duo Studio Standard View rooms for the same dates for just $672 all in.
Whoa!
So I can get 2 hotel rooms. I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but 2 separate bathrooms at the Disneyland Hotel for a tiny bit more than 1 small room at Pixar Place. That is a good deal. And you can find those deals yourself at dvcrentalstore.com/DisneyDish.
Oh, that is a great deal.
All right. On to the news, Jim. Let's go with Universal Orlando, and congratulations and good luck to the opening team at Epic Universe. It looks like the weather is going to be hot, but not raining. So that's good news for the park. And I suspect, Jim, we're going to hear Halloween Horror Nights dates announced sometime after this week's News Focus on Epic Universe.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's May, so of course it's time to start talking about Halloween.
We're halfway to Halloween.
Halfway to
right?
Halloween.
Exactly.
And didn't Disney, I mean, I want to say D23 members were given the heads up about, I guess there's one night this year at the Magic Kingdom that's been designated as a D23 member thing, but they were...
Yeah, we'll talk about, Disney's already announced Halloween dates. We'll do that. The one thing I wanted to mention about Universal, though, is, did you see the news that dropped about food at Universal Horror Unleashed in Las Vegas?
Oh, no, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
So one of the areas, one of the houses is themed to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Mm-hmm. And that area, Universal has said, is going to have a restaurant called Rough Cuts with, and I quote, chainsaw carved small plates. Now, the first thing that I asked myself was, when we say chainsaw carved small plates, does that the food or the dishware that will be made with chainsaws? Because, Jim, and here's what I was thinking. The health inspections can go kind of either way. Like, imagine you're a health inspector at a restaurant called Rough Cuts with chainsaws. And you are like, do I hear screaming coming from the walk-in? And then you hear the sound of chainsaws, and you know what? It's probably nothing. Here's your A grade approval. Well, I'll see you guys next year. Like, that's how that would go, right?
Yeah, I'm fairly certain you are correct. On the other hand, again, chainsaw carved small plates. I don't want shards of porcelain in whatever I'm eating. I'm just saying.
I'm thinking they're all wood, which again is environmentally friendly and renewable, so I'm good with that.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But some clarification there from Universal's marketing team would be great. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, on to Walt Disney World. Jim, you mentioned we have dates now for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. There are 38 event days between August 15th and October 31st. It's the same number as 2024. It looks like early on in August and September, it's Fridays, Sundays, and Tuesdays, plus also Thursday, September 25th. And then in October, it's basically more than every other day, 17 dates in October alone. Tickets range from $127 to $244 per person. The cheapest tickets are the events through August 26th. With August 17th and 19th, so the second and third dates being the cheapest. I think, Jim, that Disney knows that August 15th will bring out every social media person ever. So that's $149, not $100 plus tax.
There we go.
Tickets are on sale now for resort guests. They go on sale for the general public. It's coming Thursday, May 22nd. As usual, you get in at 4. The event runs from 7 p.m. to midnight. So, yeah, what do you think?
Well, the notion of bumping the price for the very first night, August 15th, just face it, there's a crowd that has to be there. That's how they generate content.
That's what I think. I'm surprised the price, frankly, isn't more than $140 plus tax. I would just make it $199 and just see who really needs to be there.
There we go. And look for that idea to be implemented in 2026. Okay. Just saying.
Absolutely fine.
Okay.
Absolutely fine. Also, Disney announced dates for Epcot's Food and Wine Festival. Runs August 28th through November 23rd, 2025. 35 booths are planned. Also, there's the return of Remy's Hide and Squeak scavenger hunt, where you search for miniature Remy's throughout World Showcase. And then Emile's Fromage Montage, which gets you a free dessert for purchasing several cheese dishes. Jim, I love to be rewarded for behavior that I was going to do anyway. Like, I think that is perfectly appropriate.
All right. They had me with the name Fromage Montage.
I've told you about my niece Gigi and her cheese knowledge, right?
No. I've heard she's a wonderful girl, but I did not know about. Okay.
Years ago, maybe 7-8 years ago, I started sending Chrissy, my sister, a Cheese of the Month club from Murray's Cheeses in New York City. And so every month she gets a selection of 3 or 4 cheeses. Now, that's been going on for 6 or 7 years, and Chrissy shares the cheeses with her daughter, my niece, Giovanna, who we call Gigi. And we didn't realize how serious Gigi was taking the cheeses, because at this point she has sampled literally hundreds of different cheeses, right? Probably more cheeses than you and I have had in our entire lives. But at one point, Gigi was apparently getting a cheese tray from school and said that she only eats 12 to 18 month aged Gouda, not the stuff that's younger or the stuff that's older. And that, of course, engendered a note back from the teacher to Chrissy saying, she's the first student I've ever met that actually has a cheese preference. Anyway, so Gigi now has a friend at Publix in the cheesemonger section, and she calls her cheese friend. And I'm like, Gigi, no. She is your fromage ami.
Oh. And by the way, just a quick side note here, a fromage montage was actually what got me thrown out of art class in 3rd grade.
Little did they know you were cutting edge. You were like the Bjork of cheese sculpture. Exactly. All right, on to surveys. Our friend Kate Giansante sent in a DCL survey with a few, I think, new questions, Jim. And some of these you can kind of see where they're going, and then some of them I'd love to get your take on. So here's one. What made you interested in sailing on a multi-day cruise on the Disney Fantasy specifically? And options include things like, the ship is affordable for our group. And I did a spit take on that one too. The ship sails to appealing destinations or ports. The ship departs from a port that's convenient. I have previous experience with the ship. The ship has appealing itinerary durations. There are unique experiences or venues that you can only get on the ship, or none of the above. All right, so that's fair.
Okay.
And then, so that's sort of like a marketing thing, right? Why did you choose this specific ship? So Disney can sort of target that. But then the next one is more related to, booking. And the question is this: knowing that you've shopped on the Disney Cruise Line website for a cruise, but didn't book, which of the following reasons best describes your future intentions to book this ship? I plan to book, but later. I'm still considering, and I haven't made a decision yet. I already booked a cruise on another cruise line. I decided on a different type of vacation, and I decided on a different ship. So what would they do with that information?
Well, okay. Now,
future intentions.
Yeah. I mean, the fantasy is how old now?
2012, so 13 years. That's still good for ships.
Yeah, all right. So this is not a case of, okay, we're expanding our inventory and getting a sense of if we were looking to let a ship or two, pull them out of the fleet, which one would it be? So that's...
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
That's interesting, though. All right.
So the closer to my time of desired travel dates is an interesting option because... Disney and a few other cruise lines have moved away from last-minute discounts on cruise fares. I think Royal Caribbean started this with something called pricing integrity, where they actually told people in advance, look, starting, I think it was 2019, or the cheapest prices you're going to get for your cruise are by booking a year or more in advance. And we are not going to discount cruises at the last minute just to fill cabins.
Wow.
So by saying... I plan to book closer to the time of my desired travel dates. You're essentially saying the price is not as important to me, like the few $100s in price difference or whatever is not as important to me as knowing other things about the trip. And so that would be an interesting marketing exercise to figure out how you overcome that objection. Cause I'm pretty sure Disney would rather lock you in early at a reduced rate then wonder if you're going to book at the last minute, right?
Oh, no.
Bird in the hand and all that?
No, absolutely. Face it, better to know in advance, what your occupancy rate is going to be on the ship so you can staff. I mean, what is it? It's one crew member for what, every 2 and 3 guests? Is that the...
Oh, it's a really good ratio. Yeah, so like 1 to 2, something like that.
Okay.
It's phenomenal how many people are there. Yeah. The next question actually goes into more detail about what might have convinced you to book. And let me run some of these options by everyone to see if that would have gotten them off the fence. So here's the question. If any of the following were available, how would it have impacted your decision to book a cruise on the Disney Fantasy when you were researching a sailing? So one option is a discount on additional staterooms when one or more staterooms are booked together on the same sailing, an onboard credit to use. And this one I think is interesting. Round-trip transportation from the airport to the departure port included in the voyage fare, such as a high-speed train, shuttle service, etc. Or premium internet included. So premium internet's $100 per person-ish, yeah. But round trip transportation, it'd be interesting.
No, absolutely. What's intriguing about this is, remember how this survey started. They caught a person who shopped but didn't commit.
Shopped but didn't book, yes. The kids call these abandoned carts.
Well, there we go. There we go. And it's just sort of like, okay, so what would have sealed the deal here?
I think it's great.
Yeah. Okay.
I might use some of these questions for people who come to the Touring Plans website but don't subscribe. I think that'd be super interesting to see.
Also true.
And then the last two questions are, I think, designed again as marketing exercises to overcome objections. The question is this. First one is, I want to take a multi-day ocean cruise to, and the options are things like create memories with my family, enjoy entertainment, events, attractions, rest and relax, feel nostalgic, and so on. So, you can imagine a marketing campaign that is built around the most popular of these choices, right? And then the next question is, which of the following, if any, concern you about multi-day ocean cruising? Things like seasickness, additional costs beyond the cruise fare, I can get more for my money on other vacations, and so on. So you kind of see how, like, the first question would be designed to highlight the things that draw you in and get your interest. And then the second question would be, okay, but they're going to think of objections. Let's just start addressing them now. Yeah, I think it's really a really well done survey. But here's my overall question, right? DCL is sailing at like 93% occupancy out of Florida. What are they trying to improve here?
Well, I keep circling back to the notion of, in fact, Bob Iger talked about this when the tariffs initially came down, that there's two ships already in construction, and then the one they acquired that's going to be based out of Singapore, coupled with evidently their contracts out on the next two ships, and the notion of when there's that much inventory in just a few years' time, maintaining a 93% occupancy rate is going to be tough.
Yeah, maintaining those margins and the 93% occupancy rate.
Yeah, that's
going to be the thing, yeah.
This is them being proactive, trying to get ahead of the curve.
Ah, right.
The very notion of what powers people to book a Disney cruise, and more to the point, when they come within inches and don't commit.
And don't commit to it. Yeah.
What's going to take to seal the deal?
I wonder if there would be a question around, like, would a lower deposit amount have spurred you to just, throw $50 down on a credit card or something like that? I wonder if that would be another question. Anyway.
Okay.
Super interesting stuff. All right. And speaking of questions, on to listener questions. Jim, this one's for you from Thomas Krul, who says, a recent show mentioned the Hercules Parade that opened the same day as the movie. Then there was the Hunchback show at the studios, Tarzan Rocks at Animal Kingdom, and Legend of the Lion King at Magic Kingdom, all of which opened around the time of the movie premiere. Why do you think Disney went away from this idea of having a show or attraction open at the same time as a movie? Do you think we'll ever see something like this again?
To be completely honest here, I think it's post-Mulan. Disney had a period where, for example, Atlantis, The Lost Expedition, and we've talked about on the show, for example, the Fire Mountain, the coaster that was Atlantis themed, that was supposed to be built at the Magic Kingdom of Florida. Likewise, the redo of the subs for Disneyland, the Atlantis Expedition, where still I love that poster that they mocked up for it. It's
amazing.
Classic sub from the 50s in the claw of some giant mechanical beast, and the line for the poster is, "Don't waste your breath screaming." But the hard reality is that all of this stuff got developed for a movie that came out and audiences shrugged at. And I think that kind of caught the entertainment team by surprise. And it was just sort of like, all right, hang on. I don't know as we necessarily want to go down these roads right now during this period at the studio. And we then began to see more and more things like the Pixar Play Parade at California Adventure, where it's like, let's just group a bunch of characters from one franchise and something that isn't keying off of a movie that's going to be in theaters maybe for a month.
Oh, valid point. So you think it's the hit and miss nature of original theatrical releases versus like, the 15th Avengers movie.
And let's not overlook the fact that Disney moved from doing things like the Aladdin Royal Caravan, which only ran in the park for 15, 18 months, to again, Pixar Play Parade ran for years. So it's just, when you spend that much money on a parade, you want to get some life out of it. And keep that in mind with the new, the Starlight Parade debuting at the...
Oh, right. Yeah. Doesn't the studio also pick up some of the tab for running these attractions? And that goes into the profit and loss for the movie, right? That's a marketing expense?
It does. In fact, to this day, I wish that Disney had continued the Tiana's Showboat show, where that was lovely and a great use of the Mark Twain. But studio committed to 3 months of funding that, and the day that money was up, that show stopped.
Yeah, fair. Okay, that makes sense. All right, here's another question for you. This one is sent in by both Andrew Myers and Nathan, who say, I'm happy to see the May the 4th Star Wars stuff added to Disney Plus, including 2 videos of Disneyland, a walkthrough of Galaxy's Edge, and a ride-through of Rise of the Resistance. Both are branded in the artwork on their show pages as, quote, Disney Parks POV, and they also have a Disneyland 70 logo. Do you think we can expect more of these videos, maybe tied into the anniversary year? And I included, Jim, a screen cap of the Disney Parks POV logo in the show notes. So do you think this is going to be like a new channel for them?
What's intriguing about this, and I don't know if Disney World cast members shared this with you, Len, but I want to say within the past week to 10 days, they had they were recruiting cast members who take part in what they referred to as an archival filming of Muppet Vision 3D.
Muppet Vision, yeah. And they were filling in the edge seats. They weren't getting the prime spots.
Oh, no,
they were getting the seats on the edges, the 1s and 2s left in the corners.
No, absolutely. But the notion was that this thing is going to be preserved on film for some sort of future use. And not to put too fine a point on it, but friends who actually worked on both of the Star Wars Galaxy's Edges said, it's nice that they have those POV things, because those sides of the park are about to change. So it's someday we'll look nostalgically back on the original version of Galaxy's Edge. But again, it's nice to have these.
It's nice to have them, exactly. All right, Kara Firestone sent in an email received for an upcoming reservation at Takumite at Epcot's Japan Pavilion, titled in all caps, "Please read before check-in." And the email is so glorious that for our younger listeners who might wonder, Jim, what the internet looked like in 1997, let me tell you, this email is pretty close, and I've pasted a screen cap in the show notes. Jim, I want you to look at that as I describe it for our listeners. First of all, there are at least 3 different font sizes. There is the appropriate mixed use of standard and all caps. There are multiple text colors, including red, black, and blue. Some of it includes yellow highlighting blended in with the red and the black text, all in various states of emphasis, including normal text, italics, bolding, and underlining in every possible combination. There are 3 separate sections that clarify that Takumite is not Teppan Edo or Shiki-sai sushi, which you're welcome for that, because I think we highlighted that specific issue on this show. And I'm also, here's my question, Jim. I don't know how I feel about a dining reservation that includes a 16 bullet point instructional email. I mean, look at that. That reads like a checklist.
This makes me wonder what's going on at that little check-in desk at the front.
They are going through some stuff, Jim. They are putting in a shift.
Yeah. I mean, it just sounds like, okay, it's time to begin your shift at the check-in desk. Okay, here's your batter's helmet and your protective thing. People are about to get upset.
To be fair, I did not know that Takumite has an 8 years old and up policy. So I did actually learn something from the email. So fair enough. We kid because we love. All right. Here's a trip planning question from Claudia Rossani from the UK, who says this: we're flying into Orlando for 5 nights in late March 2026. The last time we were there as a family was 2016. With only 5 nights, which Disney and Universal parks should we visit to make the most of our limited time. We're quite happy to spend those 5 days from rope drop to park close. In this case, jet lag is our friend, and coffee really helps during the latter part of the day. Yeah, you and me both, sister. All right. So I responded to Claudia with some initial thoughts, and we go through them because there's still an open-ended thing at the end. I said I'd definitely schedule one day for Epic Universe, right? So it's a question then of how to spend your remaining 4 days.
Okay.
And I thought, Jim, Epcot should be one of those days because it'll have a new test track by then. And Claudia's last proper trip was 2016, so she hasn't seen Guardians of the Galaxy, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, the Luminous Nighttime Show, or Soarin' Around the World. So I would schedule Epcot for one day.
Okay,
right?
no, I can get behind that. All right.
Fair. And similarly, I'd say Hollywood Studios would be another day. They haven't seen Galaxy's Edge. They haven't seen Toy Story Land, both of which opened after 2016. They haven't seen the 2 new stage shows. Muppet Courtyard, is going to be a construction zone. Maybe even Animation Courtyard will be a construction zone. But they'll also get to see the new Muppets retheming of Rock and Roller Coaster, right?
Okay. Sounds like another good solid day. Okay, so that's 3.
All right. And then I said Islands of Adventure for another day because Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure is new, as is Velocicoaster, and those are 2 very good attractions. And that was 4 of the 5 days. And I said to Claudia, why don't you just take a rest day? Because, a rest day is important when you're going that many days in a row in a park. And she wrote back and she's like, no, we're going to power through.
Okay.
So what would we have for the 5th day? I mean, so I thought maybe Animal Kingdom, because it's the new Zootopia movie, but Dinoland is going to be completely closed, and there's nothing really new there.
Yeah, that's hard to justify a trip to that park with just the one new offering. Okay.
So Magic Kingdom is going to have a refurbished Big Thunder, but Frontierland and Liberty Square are going to be a construction zone.
And okay, and it's March of 2026. Do we know if the nighttime parade is strictly a summer holiday thing, or
no? It's going to be year round, I'm sure.
Okay.
To be fair, Magic Kingdom will also have Tron.
Oh, also true. Okay.
All right, so maybe that's it. And Magic Kingdom has the most attractions. So maybe Magic Kingdom is the last park.
Okay. And apologies to the folks at Animal Kingdom. 5 years from now, when the family comes back.
Yeah, 2027, 2028. Yeah, their trip after that.
Okay.
Exactly. All right. Our last email is from Hugh Trimble, who says, I have a vivid sense memory of getting off of It's a Small World in Disneyland in July of 2013, only to find that in the heat, a strip of that black non-slip coating they use on the seats had permanently stuck itself to the seat of my shorts. The thing is, I always wondered why that black strip was so glittery. After listening to your show on the Light Magic Parade, I now realize it was probably my very own souvenir Mylar pixie dust, still sticking to clothes 16 years later.
Yes, they work. The world will end at some point, and some alien species will come to this burn husk of a planet, land in Anaheim, and what's the deal with the Mylar?
Why is it so shiny here?
There we go.
I thought that one was great. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim gives us the history of Epcot's Mission Space attraction. We'll be right back.
Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second LTE internet plan with smartphone plan savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Vitamin Water was born in New York because New Yorkers wanted more. Like more flavor to go with all the flavor. A refreshing drink after climbing 6 flights of stairs to a walk-up apartment, or standing in the subway station in 100-degree heat. Focus when I have an 8-hour shift, and Triple X after I was out all night at a club called Triple X. Drink vitamin water. It's from New York.
And we're back. All right, Jim. Mission Space, an attraction we don't talk about a lot on the show.
We don't.
Its popularity has waned, but it didn't start off that way, right?
No. In fact, interesting you mentioned issues with its popularity and waning, because on this day, May 18th, 2000, it was a shiny, hopeful moment for this soon-to-begin construction attraction at Epcot Center. In fact, the plans for Mission Space were actually launched out into space aboard the Atlantis, which was NASA's space shuttle STS-101. And the plans then spent 10 days circling the planet aboard the International Space Station, where they then returned to the work site for this $100 million project. Wow. Though, given the issues that Mission Space would have going forward, also worth noting that on this very same date, May 18th, only in the year 2006, Disney was then forced to open a less intense version of the Suture World attraction due to guest complaints. There are those at WDI to this day who kind of wish those construction plans had stayed aboard the International Space Station. It's like, maybe that didn't work out. And so what went wrong here? Well, look, the hard reality is that this thrill ride, and let's be honest here, thrill rides are things you can build TV commercials around, which can then air nationally, which then drive what is known in the business as intent to visit. And when you're the Walt Disney World Resort and you have 37,014 hotel rooms, and by the way, I know that number is correct because I went over the touring plans today and got it from there.
That's the number. Yeah.
There we go. Look, when you run a resort like Walt Disney World, people's intent to visit is something you pay very, very close attention to. In fact, remember what we were just talking about with the cruise line survey. So, big thrill rides are the sort of things that make people spring for vacation packages, hotel reservations, plane tickets, lay down a lot of coin so they can then go to friends and family. Yeah, we were just down at Disney, and you heard about that crazy new ride they opened? And if you were paying attention in the 90s and the 2000s, the company opened these sorts of things like clockwork. July of 94, we got Tower of Terror. March of 99, we got Test Track. July of 99, Rock and Roller Coaster. Then Mission Space is August of 2003. And then Expedition Everest is April of 2006. And want to point out here that the overall Walt Disney World construction schedule back then, anyway, was that a brand new thrill ride had to open on property every 3 to 3.5 years, because that was the typical travel pattern for the well-to-do middle-class family. They had the means to return to Walt Disney World every 3.5 years if they had a sufficient incentive. Yeah. I'd also want to point out here that Test Track it seems to be the only thrill ride that didn't follow that schedule.
Well, it would have.
Well, there we go. It was originally supposed to open in May of
they tried.
May of 97, which would have been 3 years right after Tower of Terror. And ran into one teensy little issue during Test and Adjust, and one of the cars on the right, unoccupied, want to stress that, flew off the track and slammed into a wall. And the thing was that the Imagineers had no idea why it had done that, because prior to this, that same vehicle had made dozens upon dozens of trips around the ride track with absolutely no issue. So There was a lengthy post-accident investigation, followed by Test Track getting a whole new set of brake zones.
Well, we're redesigning the software, we're redesigning the hardware, we're redesigning the track.
Yeah. So, long story short, the opening of that got pushed back by nearly 2 years. That opened in May of '99. But if they had not had that issue, the same pattern would have held. Tower in '94, Test Track in '97, and then Rock and Roller Coaster in '99. Anyway, Okay. And by the way, just a reminder, as Len mentioned in our which park to go to answer to the guest question, Test Track went down for a retheme September of 2023. And second time this has happened, by the way. They rethemed it in 2012. And do we have a specific opening date yet? All I've been able to find, Len, is late summer.
Late summer, yeah. Don't have a date yet.
Okay, because the scaffolding out front has come down, right? Came down last month.
Yep, and we've heard test cars lapping the track.
Okay,
as well.
Okay, yeah. And all we have in regard to what this revamped version of the ride will do, I'm quoting from the press release now. We have do queue exhibits, rework show scenes, and a renewed focus on customization, onboard technology, and the joy of driving, which I can almost guarantee you folks will not involve your ride vehicle coming off the track and slamming into a wall.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
There we go. All right. Now back to the topic of this week's feature, which, again, when people pay big bucks to travel down to Florida to experience a giant new thrill ride, they expect a couple of things. They want, number one, to be thrilled. At the same time, number two, they want to be safe, as we just discussed. And then there's the third thing, which is often implied, but not often said aloud. They don't want to get sick.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. All right. And Mission Space, when it finally opened for business in August 13, 2003, it could deliver reliably two of those things.
Two of those things, very reliably. I got so sick the first ride.
Well, no,
oh my God.
That's that third thing, not making people became problematic.
I remember as we're talking about this, in my head, I am having the flashback of me walking down the exit corridor. But okay,
all right. Well, tell you what, we'll get into the as least graphic specifics as we can get here in a moment, folks. But first, this.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, plus stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. The NBA playoffs are here, and Michelob Ultra is getting you closer to the game than ever with courtside seats and more. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access Courtside 2024 to 2025 sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Ends on July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/superior access/courtside for free entry deadlines and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
Summer's here, and you can now get almost anything you need for your sunny days delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get a chicken parmesan delivered. A cabana? That's a no. But a banana? That's a yes. A nice tan? Sorry, nope. But a box fan? Happily, yes. A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
And we're back. Okay, now before we get to the graphic stuff, Mission Space's operational issues, and just to be clear here, it wasn't that this Future World attraction didn't work. If anything, it worked a little too well.
Yeah,
but it was reliable.
It was reliable.
I do want to double back now to when this thrill ride first officially opened at Epcot Center, August 3rd, 2003, because you were there, Len.
I was there. I got in invited to the press event back when I got media invites.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that was like. Okay. Yeah. Now, I found an account of this event over at WDW Magic posted by Dr. Albert Falls and wanted to see if any of this jogged your memory. And so Albert describes, as soon as we walked in, there was food everywhere.
Everywhere. Yes. Tables like lining up in the walkways.
Okay. And he describes in particular big shrimp cocktail.
The first thing I was going to mention, these were, okay, so first of all, this was like 2003, so we're still coming out of the 90s era of neon plastic tableware.
Okay.
So these were like, red, deep red bases with like blue fluted stem martini cups, just topped with the largest shrimp you've ever seen, like crammed into the martini glass. Yeah. So the culinary team must have worked for weeks and, I'm sure overnight to get all of that done. It was the most impressive food catering thing I've ever seen in my life. Now, and everything was fresh.
Now, toward that end, you once told me a story, I guess, as part of the press event, you were taking a tour of the culinary side of Epcot. And
it was an unauthorized tour, but okay, go ahead.
Okay. And at one point you end up downstage in the cooking area at Living with the Land, right?
Right. So the other thing, along with the opening of Mission Space, they were reopening Sunshine Seasons.
Oh, that's right.
That same day.
Okay.
So we had done the press tour in the morning, and we finished around 1:00. And I was actually, this is the where I met Dave Smith, the Disney archivist.
Oh,
and so
cool,
at 1:00. Yeah, and Dave was fantastic. And that's where Dave told me that, years from now we're going to do Sorting Around the World. This was 2003, and I knew it. Anyway, so we finished the event around 1:00, the preview, and they had actually closed Epcot off, for that evening. And 1:00, our preview was done, whatever. And they're like, you guys can go back to your hotel room, until then, but the park is actually closed now at 1:00 for the remainder of the day, so we can prepare for the event. And so I was with Eve Ziebart, the food columnist for the Washington Post, and we looked at each other and said, why don't we ask if we can stay? So we asked our PR person, and they're like, yeah, you can't go on any rides, but you can walk around as much as you want. Just catch a bus or a cab back to your hotel, walk out to the front and get a cab and you go back, right? And we're like, okay. So we start walking around, and they're actually getting ready for Sunshine Season. So we go down and, we're walking through, Sunshine Seasons and everything. And if you remember, at one time they had, a giant demonstration cooking thing for Pan-Asian food. And so there was this cauldron. There's no other word to describe it. It's not like a casserole thing or anything. It is a large steel cauldron, in the middle of this giant stone heating thing. And they're making some sort of beef stock for that night. And, one of the chefs behind there who's working on this, and Jim, this thing is enormous. It had to be 40, 50, 100 gallons. I mean, it's just massive. So the chef recognizes Eve. I guess they knew each other from something.
Okay.
Anyway, so he waves her over. He's like, come here. And I'm going too, right? He's like, and they talk and they catch up, and he's like, can you tell me how this tastes? And he gives her a spoonful of this beef broth. And it's this deep brown, rich, like you can smell it. It smells great. She takes like 2 sips of it and says, that is way too salty. And this dude looked at her dead in the eye and dumps the entire cauldron of soup into the sink and starts over. And I was like, oh God. She says 3 words and he dumps all the soup. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, we'll get it done. It's fine. We'll make it. We're going to remake it again from scratch. And I felt bad that that's what happened, but B, that kind of shows you the level of dedication that the culinary team was going through. And they probably still go through today. Like, if somebody who knows food says this isn't right, they will start over. if they have to. It was super impressive.
Well,
Yeah.
now speaking of super impressive, we now get to the opening night ceremony. And in fact, what I especially love about this is, remember, Walter Cronkite came in to be the narrator of Spaceship Earth at, in fact, he was the second narrator, came in, 86 and stayed on through 94, replaced by Jeremy Irons. So Walter Cronkite had been a part of Epcot, but hadn't been in the park for almost 9 years at this point. And so they start up the ceremony, and who's the narrator but Walter Cronkite?
I tell you, they used to do press events so well. I mean, the first time I ever saw Wishes, Julie Andrews narrated it live. I mean, anyway, yeah, Walter Cronkite was there. We were all super impressed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what's funny, Albert Falls describes, at one point, he's standing there in the crowd, and again, they're waiting for the official opening ceremony of Mission Space to get underway, and he looks up, and there is a full moon over.
Right! Oh my god, it was so bright. We were joking. It was like, oh my god, this is an effect.
No, that's it exactly.
Yeah, no. It was a beautiful, clear, it was hot, but beautiful, clear night. And yeah, the moon was just bam, right there. It was very big and very bright, yeah.
And then I think you and I being of a similar age, that this is a thing from Disneyland of the 1960s that you never expected to see in Florida, right? The jetpack guy.
Okay, so they bring in a guy on a jetpack, and he flies around Future World. And first of all, I mean, jetpacks are cool, objectively cool, right? Jim, what they don't tell you is how loud these things are. Yeah. It was like a jet engine, an unmuffled jet engine. The whine was, I mean, you had to cover your ears, but even then it was like this feels dangerous from a sound perspective. Yeah, it was amazing. Also, that guy was a daredevil in the truest sense of the word, because that was crazy. Yeah, super cool though. Super cool to see.
Speaking of men who do dangerous things, there were dozens of actual astronauts. Yeah,
real live astronauts who've been to space. Yeah. Buzz Aldrin was there.
There we go. And, but the kicker is Eisner gets up on stage and a video screen kicks on, and it's like, oh, two guys floating in space. It's like, okay, so this is some pre-recorded bit that Michael now needs to read, off of a script and get his lines right. And it's like, it's only after a moment or two everyone realizes, like, holy crap,
it's live.
These are two guys.
Is there anything more Future World than talking to people in space while you're opening a ride in Epcot? It was just so on point for everything. It was great.
And then it all ends with, to this day, what people describe as one of the greatest fireworks displays in Walt Disney World history.
We were so close to the fireworks, Jim. I swear to God. Some of the reporters who had been through Vietnam, they're kind of looking at them like, dude, are you going to be okay through this? It was all so loud and just full of energy and exuberant, and Eisner was happy, and oh God, it was so much fun.
It was.
I ended up getting to meet a bunch of the astronauts. Cause they made some of the astronauts available for questions, right? So I met, Guy Bluford, who was the first Black American in space. He trained at NASA with my North Carolina A&T engineering alumnus, Ron McNair, for whom McNair Hall is named on campus. Yeah. So we had a nice thing about that. Anyway, so I asked Guy, like, okay, how close is this to flying in the space shuttle? Cause he had done at that point, I think 4 or 5 missions on the space shuttle. And he was like, it's pretty close. So he said, and correct me, I could be off on the numbers here, but, I think this is what he said. The space shuttle, you're pulling like 3 Gs at launch. And I thought for sure you'd be more than that, but he's like, it's 3 Gs. And he said, mission space, you're pulling 2.5. Wow. And remember, this is before they tuned it down. So he's like, it's not the same, but it's close. Like, it gives you an idea of it. So they were, and then because I'd already ridden it and got sick, I asked another astronaut who's going to remain nameless, okay, what's the trick for not getting nauseous when you're spinning in these? Because we've all seen like the old NASA footage of an astronaut just being put on the end of a rotating arm and spun around like a human blender. I'm like, how do you not throw up on that? And he's like, here's the secret. And like the NASA publicist is right there. And is like just saying in my ear over and over again, NASA does not give medical advice to the general public. NASA does not give medical advice to the general public. NASA does, right, over and over again. I'm like, yeah, I got it. I understand. Not quoting anyone directly, or this is not, okay. But what he said was, you want to keep, a mint or gum in your mouth, because apparently the nerves in your mouth, when they're activated, like, chewing or eating, they will also not try and throw up at the same time, ideally.
Wow.
And so it was like a trick. It's like tricking your mind. Also, he said, and the way that he said this, led me to believe that he had firsthand experience. He said, never ever have milk or tomatoes before you do this. He said, because it comes out unpleasantly. I think he said something about like vomiting it through his nose and just having that smell for the rest of the, anyway. He's like, yeah, okay, so no milk, no, yeah, a mint, gum, yes, milk, tomatoes, no, yes, yeah. Okay. It was very educational, yeah. Also, let me just say, NASA does not give out medical advice to the general public.
There we go. And note to self, do not approach Campbell's Soup in regard to sponsoring Mission Space.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Anyway, this attraction of this amazing press event is open. And as Glenn mentioned, Disney worked for 5 years with NASA to get as close as possible to replicate the experience of blasting off into space.
And Eisner wanted this to be a thrill ride.
Yes.
Like to rival what Universal was doing with its big coasters.
Absolutely. Yeah. But even during the soft opening of this attraction, rumors began to bubble up that this ride was just too intense for some guests. That they exited the attraction, walked through the air-conditioned post-show gift shop, and as soon as some people got outside, stepped into that Central Florida heat and humidity, they'd suddenly feel nauseous, and then they'd rush over to one of the planters that was next to the...
Planters, yeah.
There we go. And we don't need to be specific here. Now, not to get too graphic here, but this became such a problem at Mission Space exits that Epcot's horticultural staff insists on a meeting with the park's custodial team.
Yep.
And there's these rather intense discussions built on like these protein spills. That's a Disney euphemism, by the way. And that they were killing the shrubs and the flowers.
The stomach acid is killing the pH in the soil. You guys got to do something. No, it's true. I don't know if you remember this, but Mission Space, after like a day or two after opening, they installed trash cans in the long hallway and also benches where you could sit down. And that was before you got to the post show.
Now, that's interesting that you say that, because the custodial team is like, look, because horticulture, you need to give us more trash cans. It's like, look, I don't know if you understand how involuntary body responses work. Yeah. It's not a question of, hang on, I need to stick my head inside of this trash can. All right. It happens.
It happens all at once. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got off that the first time. So the morning of the event, I woke up at like 4 a.m. for a flight to Orlando. I did not have anything to eat or drink. And by the time I got off the ride, so I got into Orlando, I might have had a sip of coffee, but basically around 11 a.m., like right before lunch, I knew enough to ride before I ate. But like around 11 o'clock, and so I'd been up for 7 hours, had basically nothing to eat or drink. I got off that ride and I had a migraine. Like, it was so bad. I did that and I basically sat on a bench for 2 hours afterwards. until it was time for everyone to leave. And I was like, I am done. I think I went to Electric Umbrella and sat. It was really, and so never do that. Like you need something on your stomach.
No, totally.
Oh God, the headache was just incredible.
But what was interesting, Disney tried to be proactive here. They tried to make us aware. In fact, they began talking about the fact that, okay, that when you're in the ride capsule, look straight ahead.
Straight ahead.
All right. Do not look to the left. Do not look to the right.
Head back, straight ahead. Yep. I don't know if at the time whether they had the, like right now, I know when you go into the ride, they are blasting cold air on your face.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were doing that to this extent at opening.
Jim Schul, who we do our Disney Unpacked show over on Patreon with, talked about when he and the team were working on Rock and Roller Coaster over at MGM in the 1990s. The very thing you talk about, that cold air and
cold dark spaces. That'll calm you down.
That's it exactly. They actually took that into consideration when they were building that thrill ride. That, in fact, when you step out of the stretch limo and then there's that corridor that takes you to the post-show gift shop.
Yeah, that is some of the best air conditioning in Orlando.
Absolutely,
right,
but they were also deliberately coupled with that superb air conditioning. They're also dark spaces that cast members, if they see you and you're looking a little wobbly, little glassy, they will hustle you into that space and sit you down, and that's often enough to turn it around.
It's funny you mentioned that because if you've been on Guardians of the Galaxy recently, you know that when the ride starts to get intense, you go through a section of track that is blasting cold air on you. Wow. And the same thing is true at Tron. So they've actually integrated that freezing cold air sensation into the ride to help you prevent. Well, basically, it acts as a prophylactic for you to not get sick beforehand. Yeah, no, it's super smart. Yeah,
very, very clever. Speaking of Mr. Schul, just want to remind folks, he's got his Disney Journey thing over on YouTube, and this coming week, or in fact, right now, he's discussing other things that spin. Mater's Junkyard Jamboree and how that flat spinner led to similar attractions at Hollywood Studios and two of the castle parks, Tokyo and Shanghai. But anyway, back to Epcot and those cold, dark spaces. This is why, Len, in addition to what you described, the benches in the immediate corridor after, and the trash cans once you get off of the Mission Space centrifuges, they actually taught the cast members who worked in the gift shop to keep an eye on guests as they were walking through here. And again, if you saw a glassy-eyed, somebody who was weaving, it's like, I tell you what, why don't we head back down to the game area? Sit down in the air conditioner, sit in the dark, you'll be better. Yeah. This training helped, at least as far as the bushes outside the attraction were concerned. But as for Mission Space itself, this Epcot edition quickly got a reputation among guests and cast members of just being too intense. Which is why very few people ever rerode the thing. It quickly became...
That's the thing. It's a one and done for a lot of people, or like once every 10 years for me, you know?
Well, no, I wanted to ask, does the touring plan research bear this out? I mean, is it...
Yeah. In fact, it is ridden by such a relatively small portion of our readers that we take it off of some Epcot touring plans when time is tight. Yeah.
That's not good. Okay. Well, anyway, noting what was happening to the reputation of this, again, as we mentioned, 3 years after it opened, Imagineers actually go back in and reprogram the centrifuges that spin these ride cabins so that they're now pulling fewer Gs, and that didn't turn...
Yeah, one of them actually, the green side didn't spin for a while. Remember, it was the same mission, but didn't... Oh, it spun very slowly.
It did. And in fact, what's kind of intriguing, the very thing you mentioned, they actually took one entire side of this attraction in 2017. And again, this is 14 years after the ride is open. And they created a new ride profile that had absolutely no centrifugal element. The green mission.
Green mission, yeah. It's Earth orbit, right?
There we go.
I like it quite a bit. I love
I'm not gonna lie. I actually prefer it to the...
You and I have done it together. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, it's a beautiful flyover of the planet with a tiny bit of drama. I guess there's some weather over the field scheduled as you're landing. But,
Right.
but and if I'm being honest here, also, if we're talking about Mission Space, I have the same complaint about this ride that I do about Smuggler's Run. That interactive element where you're the engineer or whatever, some point, you're under certain pressure to, hit this button at that time or hit the retro rockets. And it's like, look, pal, I'm just here to ride. Don't give me a job that, I killed everybody. All right. I want to look out at the plane.
I'm not sure that my 30-second training video by Gary Sinise
there we go.
covered every eventuality that might happen in space, right? Yeah. Okay.
What's kind of interesting is that we have heard, again, Smuggler's Run has the same element, but we're getting a new ride film next year. In fact, that keys off of Mandalorian Grogu, which arrives in theaters in 2026. But the idea is they're going to step back from the, you have to hit the button at this time. You have to help, the engineer does this and the navigator does that. There's also been some talk about Disney, and again, as Len shared the research about how few people go out of the way to experience this attraction now. It's just sort of like, all right, we need to do something about Mission Space. This was a noble experiment in cutting edge ride technology, but we went to a place the public wasn't ready for. What was interesting is when Bob Chapek was in charge of Disney, we all know about the Play Pavilion because that the replacement for Wonders of Life, because that got announced on Bob's watch, and that was supposed to be the Futureward project that was going to happen right up until Bob was forced out as Disney CEO in November of 2022. Where we are now, on the heels of, again, Test Track comes back online late this summer, 2025, is that there are 3 pavilions in Future World that, to be honest, need a little love and attention. One is obviously Journey into Imagination. The other, as we just mentioned, is Wonders of Life. And then there is just the hard reality of Mission Space has, for a lot of folks, is, I did that, I don't want to go back there.
One and done.
One and done.
Exactly.
And so it's just going to be interesting to see going ahead here. Because remember, also, we poured a lot of money into redoing the front half of Epcot into World Nature, World Celebration, World Discovery. So it's going to be a while before this park becomes a priority again. But those 3 pavilions are seen right now as, all right, we need to address these and either update them or at least turn them back into things that people really want to experience, which is, let's be honest, not what Mission Space is doing these days.
Yeah. I mean, Mission Space was an ambitious plan that didn't hit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you got to give them credit for trying. I think we said on a recent show that the depreciation schedule for Mission Space is now favorable.
There we go.
To them redoing something. I think. So here's the thing, right? Journey into Imagination and Mission Space together have a ton of theoretical capacity that isn't being used.
Yep.
Wonders of Life would just take so much work. That is like a green field at this point. So I think that's out. I don't think the company's going to spend that kind of money. Also, they already have Guardians of the Galaxy in that section of the park.
You're not wrong.
So I think Journey into Imagination is the most likely attraction to be redone of the 3 for a couple of reasons. One, if they did it and turned it into a kid-friendly ride, it'd be one more kid-friendly thing to do in Epcot. 2, Figment sells merch. And then 3, it would alleviate some of the pressure on Guardians of the Galaxy early in the morning, especially if they did some sort of, super headliner Journey into Imagination thing. I don't know what that is, but that would be part of the appeal.
By the way, just one final note before we duck out here. There has been a lot of talk about a new 3D film for Epcot built around the Inside Out characters. And I don't know if you've seen any of the footage for the new Lagoon show at DCA, World of Color Happiness. But the irony is it's basically bookended with the Muppets. In fact, the Rainbow Connection song plays a big part in the show, but the film itself is largely built around the Inside Out characters. So, and if the rumors are true about an Inside Out 3 percolating at Pixar, I would honestly not be surprised if the 1-2 punch when Journey into Imagination goes forward is we get a beefed up super deluxe version of a Figment ride, and then we get an Inside Out 3D movie experience in the old Kodak Theater.
I'd even be fine with an Inside Out Figment collab in the ride. Like, that's fine.
That could be a smart idea as well, and that certainly has been discussed, because face it, Figment is actually in both the movies. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Our latest show with Imagineer Jim Schull looks at how Disney's used the Monsters, Inc. franchise in its theme parks. On next week's show, Jim gives us the history of temporary things that became permanent in Disney theme parks. You can find more of Jim at JimHillMedia.com and more of me, Len, at TouringPlans.com. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, who'll be handing out free seeds for Heirloom Varietals Dublin, Minnesota 13, and Seneca Red Stalker at the 51st Annual Green Corn Festival, running June 25th through the 28th at the Charlie Young Event Park. That's at the corner of North Armstrong Street, you know, where Dawes Avenue turns from east to west, in beautiful downtown Bixby, Oklahoma. While Eric and David are doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We'll see you on the next show.